Hey, everybody. Welcome to this midweek edition of Next TMT Talks. We've got a special guest today as we prepare for next week's Stream TV Denver conference, where we'll be popping out the show dailies and show wrap ups. So we'll be talking to just a regular Joe named Robert. I don't know how that works, who will be attending as part of his raw travel adventures around the globe that he puts on the web. We'll also be getting into little things like the state of Paramount trying to get that $111 billion deal done. And maybe another person that really doesn't like Netflix these days, Ken Paxton, who's running for Senate in the Texas
I was
Senate
so
race.
concerned about all the embezzlement and fraud, but now I'm not even thinking about that. All I can think about is Netflix, trying to put one over my kids.
How about the Gen AI generated TV ads that put his competition in a dress? Because you know how that plays in Texas. So
He must be getting
lots of good stuff. Anyway,
console.
Here we are. Rob,
we
why
are.
don't you introduce your site a little bit? Tell people what it is, what you do.
Well, we
Just a little
know
bit.
Rob. Let's be honest. We've had
Well,
Rob.
we do, but they don't necessarily, because we've had so many new people on since Rob first joined us. Gosh, maybe a year ago.
Friend of the
Tell us a
show.
little bit. Tell us real quickly about raw travel, Rob.
Well, Dan knows my history, as he said, but basically the short Cliff Notes version is for about 30 years. I don't know. I have to do the math. 25 years. I've been an independent producer and distributor, used to do a Latin TV show, shifted over to a travel show about 13 years ago called Raw Travel that is currently syndicated in 97% of the country, going into its 14th season. And I've kind of shifted gears towards doing a little more video journalism style stuff. So I did a documentary in Ukraine, and I'm experimenting currently with some digital first content, verticals, and just trying to maybe think about where travel meets geopolitics and current events, because things have changed from when I first began.
Let me just say that I brought Rob on because, if I may describe you, Rob, this way, so the Stream TV show Everyman. You've got a lot of content accumulated through decades. There's myriad ways to clip it, chop it up, distribute it that weren't available when you started. And you haven't pursued some of those avenues. You need a lot of information. There's definitely opportunities, but it's a confusing shopping gallery to approach. And for somebody who's independent, the whole gamut isn't cheap. So that's kind of the backdrop of this. So go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
Very well put.
All I was going to say is we are going to have a prominent role at the conference, covering it with show dailies and daily wrap-ups and all that. But there are, it looks like, hundreds and hundreds of folks now showing. This show has gotten shockingly big. God bless them. They've done great work.
Prominent? Foundational.
What?
Foundational. This thing doesn't go on unless we're doing that newsletter.
No. So, Rob, what are you hoping to glean? I mean, you're doing verticals a little bit. That's really hot. Everybody's getting into that. I was in a conversation this morning with Future of TV Live guys and their quarterly thing. And one of the things we talked about was everybody's getting into it, but there's all these little startups. The ones that are going to really matter are going to be the big boys taking their content, or you're a budding big boy, taking their content and finding new ways to get it out there to a different audience than the one that traditionally looks at you on YouTube or traditional TV, right?
When the choice came up, and Dan knows, because I leaned on him a lot, having have gone to the streaming conference before, a lot of people encouraged me to go there. And I didn't do it before because it just wasn't the right time. It just like I didn't go to NAB. I went once and I was like, this was a waste of my time. There's no reason for me to be here. But I went last April, where I saw some of you guys, or I saw Dan at least, and I was like, okay, this was useful because now I have a mission. And Dan, as you alluded to, I have a big library. I have 200 episodes, mostly evergreen content that is running through, or has run through, its second cycle on syndication. That's what's airing right now. Any new content that I'm doing is vertical, straight to digital kind of stuff. I'm experimenting maybe with a video podcast for someone that wants me to do some travel related stuff that way. So as an independent producer, you don't survive unless you zig while everyone else zags. And I have to tell you, after this many years in the business, I am shocked by the lack of originality and creativity of people. And perhaps I shouldn't be, because when you're in corporate America, you're maybe more concerned with not losing your job than with going for something. And so,
Particularly at a time like Hollywood, for instance, where lots of people are losing their jobs. The last thing
again,
you want to do is give people a reason to lay you off
I mean,
as opposed
we've
to that next
discussed
guy,
this before.
right?
I am shocked at the amount of people who are in captains of content industry who could give a shit about content. That's
right.
kind of most of them, I think, at this point. Television, what we
Yeah.
do. But go ahead, Ron.
Well, I mean, they're playing not to lose. And except for when they're doing mergers and acquisitions, maybe. And then it's, scorched earth. But I
Right.
think like what gets lost is exactly what you said, Dan, which is the content, the actual creativity. So you look at the fast channel universe, and I just looked at it before I went to NAB because I was thinking about starting my own, using my 200 episodes as a basis. And I look at the travel fast channel and it's all the same. It's like, does it have a tangential relationship to travel? Yes. Therefore, put it on.
Right.
It's the same thing I saw on broadcast TV.
Like if you had to get on a plane to go shoot the thing, that's a travel show, right? I mean,
it was like, well, just like you consider, what is it that Mark Burnett puts on, the show where you run around and it's a scavenger hunt? That's not a
are
travel
you talking
show.
about Amazing Race?
Amazing Race, yeah. For some
A
people, that's
multi-Emmy winning Amazing Race, but basically a scavenger hunt across the globe. Yeah.
yeah. And
So-
when you look at the travel landscape, on Netflix, on Apple TV or whatever, there are travel shows.
Right.
Eva Longoria, Zach, whatever his name is from Baywatch, the Baywatch movie, Jason
Efron.
Momoa. Yeah, Efron. Feed Phil.
By the way, I want to see the show with Zach Galifianakis and Zac Efron. That's going to be awesome. But that's just as if that's a
Zach
Zach thing.
Galifianakis did one, and I was saying these are bad shows. I was actually surprised. I watched Zac Efron's show, prepared to be cringing, and he had one really good episode that was heartfelt. The reality of the situation is, these are celebrities who travel. They're not travelers who do travel shows.
Right. I mean, you got Stanley Tucci. You've got what's the guy?
The list goes on. The guy from
The guy with the eyebrows, the reluctant traveler.
Yeah, tries to be funny. Conan O'Brien
from Schitt's Creek. Yeah,
I think any kind of industry gets obsessed with this sort of product war that went on in fast for a while. We've got X amount of channels. We've got X amount of shows. It became units, and you gauged your worth and marketed yourself on the strength of these unit counts. And because of that, there's no curation. I mean, I would imagine an Amazing Race is a heck of a thing to have in your library, but maybe you create another channel where you put reality, world traveling contests or something. But
a lot of people don't even have, like, on their search bar an option for travel because it's thrown into the reality category, right? And I can tell you from traveling and authentic, real travelers, a lot of people will say, well, they don't watch travel television. They're busy traveling. But that's just not true. The reality is there's nothing for them. And so what little is of quality is on PBS, but it is pretty boring stuff, as I like to say, because it's just kind of dry. They're hustling. They're trying to get their shows on the air. They're maybe doing 6 or 13 episodes. And I know some independent producers that do pretty good stuff, but they don't have, PBS is its own hustle and it's having its own problems right now. Broadcast TV and syndication is like bottom of the barrel creativity. And I bring Byron Allen, I was going to mention that, as an example. He fails up constantly with some of the worst slop that's out there. Why? Because he's got volume. And volume is just throwing stuff at people without any regard. Is anybody going to watch? Which should be the very first priority that we have, not the last
whole business model, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Dave and I's whole business model is kind of volume oriented, but go ahead.
Well, but you know what? That is part of it. So on the verticals, for example, I'm doing 1 to 3 minute things and I'm talking to people who are going to quote unquote syndicate my stuff, still trying to see if there's going to be money out there, because my business model on syndication is very different. It's long form, barter syndication, ad sales. With this, someone else is going to take charge of that. But at the end of the day, they said, don't make it over 3 minutes. Well, that's a challenge. Not only am I filming like this now and cutting off half of this beautiful scenery that's around me, which is an adjustment.
Yeah.
I have to tell something in 1 to 3 minutes, but I'm kind of used to that because in the show we would do segments maybe 3 to 5 minutes before we'd move on to something else, but it happened sequentially. So,
yeah, you stack up a chain of them basically before, and now it's just right. It's like
I'm trying to take that to, like, for example, in Mexico, that was my first one. I'm not saying it's great, but I'm saying it's my first one. We had 7 1 to 3 minute segments, and they take place in Mexico City, Puerto Escondido, and Oaxaca.
Yeah.
And those are places that a raw traveler will go to. Not that a regular traveler won't. There'll be some overlap there, but if I could do it sequentially to keep them, and it seems to be building, and I'm only on episode 3. But I looked at my catalog that I've already gathered, and I've got probably 20 destinations. So for vertical, I will need volume as well in order to make money. We all need volume. And that, I guess, is why I'm going to the streaming conference, because I actually have that volume now. Whereas before, I was focused 1 episode every 3 weeks, put out and try to make that the best episode you possibly could, as opposed to the Byron Allen model, which is let me do as many shows as I can. And
then wrap around ads and make money off of that and get on to the next thing and the next
it's all
thing.
about
And the
making
next
money.
thing.
It's all about making money. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Making money's fine. But if that's your primary motivation, first of all, it doesn't
now you tell us it's okay. We thought that was inappropriate.
It's good.
Dude.
You got to have it. You got to have it, man. But it cannot be what drives you creatively, because if it does, you will fail, or you will only succeed at a certain level. And I just don't believe that is, I think when you look at things that work, that go and succeed, they stand out. They're different. And I always said, man, I may not be good, whatever I do. I said that when I started the World Travel. I didn't know if it's going to work or not. If it's not good, it's at least got to be different. And I still abide by that.
So I would say NAB, there was conversation after conversation with companies that specialize in providing end-to-end solutions for content owners to distribute them in various platforms like Fast. More so verticals. Verticals was the thing. They were just dying to get guys like you.
Clipping services, basically. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That would take the landscape stuff, reframe it into a vertical thing, output it, ready to go on TikTok and Threads, et cetera, et cetera.
I could do so many hours of that. And I appreciate those folks that do that, because it really has changed the game from when we started 13 years ago. But what it has done is also as you democratize the barrier to entry, then you get more clutter and fragmentation. So when you have on the high end, people using only celebrities to try to stand out, which I think is inauthentic and doesn't really reflect the travel that we do. And then on the low end, you just have people chopping up garbage. What's filling that gap? And so I want to try to fill that with not only my content, but other people who I know are doing good content and could do even better content if they had a good platform. And that's where I think if we do a Fast channel, if I find a right deal in Denver, then
I found your deal. I didn't tell you this. I pitched you, and it's actually kind of a negative spin on the brand, but hear me out. It's money, it's revenue. It's a MAGA travel channel.
I've had these conversations too. All right, Robert, I just want to say, hear me out. It's kind of negative for the brand, but hear me out.
Hotel chains. These are the countries you shouldn't book travel in.
I'm supposed to go to countries that you shouldn't go to?
Exactly. It's shithole countries that you should avoid.
Iran, here he comes. Look out.
Ukraine, Haiti.
You should see what it looks like in a hijab. It's fantastic.
Vietnam. Yeah,
this guy in a burqa is amazing.
No, I mean, honestly, I would say that Raw Travel, we wanted to go to all these places, and we did, but the world has changed. And that's where current events really comes into it, because, for example, I now use AI to help me plan some of the logistics of my travel, whereas before I had to do it. I didn't know, no travel agents were fired because I've never used a travel agent. I did it myself. It's independent. But maybe an intern maybe didn't get the opportunity, but I'm done with interns. I've got an AI guy now called Gemini, and Gemini is pretty good. You have to double check, but it's helping me. And so for my next trip, and I don't want to give too much away, because I don't want to give too much away. I don't want people to know everywhere I am at any given time. But from Ireland, I want it to fly as little as possible. I'm really worried about Europe running out of jet fuel or something happening with this Iran war that I thought we won and has ceasefire, but we're still firing. And anyway,
We have won it so many times. It's going to be fine.
I'm so tired of winning, but
I'm so tired of winning.
I just love slow travel. When you fly somewhere, you're disoriented. You don't get the experience of traveling. But when you take a ferry, so I'm flying to Ireland. From Ireland, I'm flying to Finland. And both of those flights are super cheap and first time to both places. And then from Finland to Estonia, I'm taking a ferry. And from Estonia, a train to Latvia. From Latvia to Lithuania on a train. Lithuania to Poland on a train. And then, of course, I have to go by train or bus or overland to Ukraine because the airspace is closed. That, to me, is raw travel, where you're not just hitting one destination and you're going there, you're going along the way, experiencing those little subtle shifts in culture as you go. And that's authentic travel. And you're never going to get that with the celebrity travel show because they're parachuting in and parachuting out. And I know this because Anthony Bourdain, it's a great show that he had, a wonderful show, but I never wanted to be that show because I knew he was a celebrity. He came in, people set stuff up for him. That never happens with us. And so I want whatever we do on the Fast Channel, if we do something, to reflect that. And I believe, just like I believe when this show hit, it'll work. I don't know it'll work. I just believe it'll work.
Okay, well, that is actually a sentence that has been used by so many entrepreneurs over the years. They're not always right, but sometimes they are, and they, if nothing else, you're going to get a trip out of it. So that's not bad. I'm planning to be in Venice and Amsterdam. Dan and I are also going to be covering IBC this fall, so we'll get a chance to see how much jet fuel is left heading to the continent by then in September. Should be a lot of fun. I'm curious, though, you are going to try to find deals to output some of your content chopped up, reconfigured, rethought, that opportunity. You've got a library. What do you do with a library? So really, that's what you're investigating for Stream TV, right?
Yeah,
what do I do with this library?
Yeah, look, NAB, I met a lot of good people who will happily take my money and help me launch a channel. I'm not interested in that. I don't want a partnership where I'll be on the EPG. I'm not interested in being another app out of, because discoverability is everything. And so just throwing our stuff on air will not work. You have to have something unique. So I'm calling the 24/7 Fast Channel the Raw Travel Revolution. And we have a little video that we put together to envision what it would be about. And it would touch all branches of the travel industry because I don't represent everything about travel. I've done RV travel, international travel, off the grid travel, voluntourism, et cetera, but I'm never going to be a woman solo traveling. I'm not going to be an African-American traveling somewhere where they have to deal with different issues than I do. A family travel. So we want to cover all those branches of the tree. Also budget travel tips. I always tell people I'm not a travel expert. I make mistakes. That's why I do a show called When Travel Goes Wrong, because I make all these mistakes. And I just don't want to be pigeonholed as an expert, but I know friends who are, and I lean on them and I'm like, they should do a podcast on the Raw Travel Revolution. And that's the idea behind it. And that's what I don't see in the Fast Channel universe is anybody curating anything. They're just putting it up there. I'm sure they're trying, but they're not very hard.
You know, this is an interesting point, Rob, because it is worthwhile to think about in this era. Really, your opportunity is not to just have a fast channel. It is to have a spectrum of content all around your brand that is in for different platforms and optimize as best you can for each of them within the resources you have. And so that might be a vertical on TikTok, and it might be a syndicated show, and it might be on YouTube, and it might be in a fast channel that's running on Samsung TV Plus. All those things connect. And in fact, the more you do that across all those things, the more powerful it is in terms of discoverability, particularly in an age of AI. And I think that's really important for you.
There's a historical element to this too. Folks who are avid travelers are interested, I think, in change over time. And you've been going back to these regions periodically for a period of well over a decade. And you can track geopolitical changes, pop culture changes. You can there's so many ways to slice and dice this and carve narratives you haven't maybe even thought of yet. So,
and how it has shaped me in terms of how I see the world geopolitically. Geopolitics was, I remember naively saying when I launched Raw Travel 13 years ago, oh, it's not a political show. We don't care about politics. I was super naive because as soon as you travel, politics cares about you. Are you going to have problems at the border? Can I go to Kazakhstan as a Ukrainian supporter and not worry about being extradited to Russia and put in prison? Can I still go there? AI says, watch out, be careful. I'm going to check other sources.
This vest made out of hashish going to get me arrested in Turkey.
Well, I mean,
you're just mentioning something not from any personal experience whatsoever, right, Dan? Mr. Border King.
What was the name of that movie again? That was
that scared everyone from travel for a long time, and I never wanted to.
Talking about Midnight Express.
Midnight Express.
That one? Yeah, in Turkey. Yeah,
I've had problems, but I never really put them on the show because the last thing I wanted to do was discourage people from travel. Because any dangers I've had have been minuscule compared to the pleasant experiences I've had. But the reality is that it does happen. And it's more like now I feel more constrained than I've ever felt because I also feel, without getting political here, that my government would not go to great lengths to extradite me from a situation where I would not have felt that before.
Yes, well, not extradite you, but extract you. Let's just call it extradition is a very specific term in exchanging bodies across borders that may or may not want to go there.
I would totally misspeak.
I would have lived long enough to see Rob get in a Donald Trump midnight social rant.
Yeah, I met him
like you, Robert Rose.
I met him once. That's enough. I mean, I think travel is antithetical to what we're seeing in the United States. So I want people to travel, but I was in Costa Rica and I saw MAGA hats, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" These are the same people who are like, "Don't immigrate," but anti-immigrants, but they're living in San Jose, Costa Rica, driving the prices up. That's not a travel story per se, but it is travel related. So someone could dig deeper into that. So when I go to Finland, I'm going to do an interview with some folks about how they inoculate their children from kindergarten from disinformation. And they're one of the most successful or the most successful country in the world with that. And they're also limiting screen time with young kids. So the Scandinavian countries, of course, are way ahead of the United States in regards to education, in regards to dealing
with let me just say, though, it helps for Finland, and it's a lovely country with I've met some lovely people from there. They are literally half the size of Los Angeles County in terms of population, and a far less diverse organization tucked away up there by the Arctic Circle, but they are able to create a polity that is very focused and able to work through its political differences despite the big thumb of Russia next door, which they famously fought off in World War II, among other things.
But in a way, we are like that too, David. I mean, we are 50 individual states, and there is a lot of power with the states. And follow this guy, Chris Armitage, and that's the way change happens. It happens on the state level, and then it gets rolled out federally. The problem is when someone like Texas, which you mentioned, turns from blue to red, and their education level goes from 14th in the country to 40-something in the country because they cut education. Tennessee, my home state, 51st. And I guess that means DC's ahead of them in terms of spending on education. And it shows.
Wow.
And so I think at the end of the day, we have a lot to learn from these countries if we will be willing to be humble and do it. And that is the raw travel way. I don't know if you can.
For what it's worth, I was covering politics in Texas as that shift happened in the 80s.
Look, I've gone to DC.
It was quite something to watch.
I'm going to interrupt both of you real fast. We kind of need to cover some ground here. I would like to give Rob, you're going to be taking meetings and trying to distill some of the stuff at the show. Is there a way to contact you beforehand and set something up?
Yeah, I mean, you can email me, rob@aimtvgroup.com, and you can go to rawtravel.tv and just hit the contact form there. But yeah, I'm literally
Rob at aimtvgroup.com.
That's right. Yeah. And so taking meetings, and I would love to talk to people. And I think I get more out of not having a specific, I'm going to do this, but like, let me talk to people and be like, here are my ideas. What are your thoughts? because I don't know. And I just want to learn. It's like going to a new destination. I'll know more after I leave, and maybe we'll do a post analysis if you like, if you still want me on after this one. But because I don't know what to expect. I really don't. And I'm hopeful, but I'm also expecting a lot.
Well, I think there's a lot going on, and we'll be happy to see. We're certainly happy to talk again. We should, though, pivot real quickly. And I was remiss in not mentioning our media partners at Media Play News for our midweek edition, and thank them for their support as we do these midweek podcasts. But we probably should pivot a little bit, don't you think, Dan, to talk a little bit about some of the things that we get into in the newsletter this week.
Well, we got to quickly talk about the New York Knicks game. The Knickerbockers of...
I've never heard. Is this a football team?
They're America's team, Dave.
What? They're not America's team. Have you been to Texas? They're not America's team. They never have been.
We're going to be in New York tonight. It's game 4.
And you're not going to be in New York.
My part will be. Anyway, the president won't be. I have a theory. Why does a president go to that game when he knows he's going to get booed? I think last night was that was Monday night. I think it was the same night that the Congress approved $70 billion for ICE. I think that was the moment that he declares war on New York. So, Rob, a little concern for you. I think ICE is coming to your town. I think it's going to get gnarly in the next.
They're going to deport me to Kazakhstan, and I'll be happy to be. If I could just stay in Kazakhstan, it'll be fine. Just don't send me to Russia, man.
No, we're fine.
No, thank goodness.
David Ellison, Barry Weiss, Warner Brothers Discovery, the fight for closure of the big deal. Dave, what do you got?
Well, when you try to put together a big international global powerhouse of a media company, it turns out you got to make nice with a whole lot of people besides that guy with the construction zone in the place formerly known as the White House / UFC arena. And so they are they checked off Australia this week. That's a big win. The UK just started. The EU is very interested in all the international investment from sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and the $24 billion they're putting in while supposedly giving up all of their voting rights or any influence on what would be one of the world's largest media companies. So they're fascinated by that. And when I say fascinated, I say not so excited. And the states, Rob Bonta, fresh off his first round primary win as California State Attorney General, is leading this thing, but they're trying to throw some concessions to the states to try to get it through with them. Meanwhile, pissy letter number 27, this time from Makan Del Rahim, the chief legal officer for Paramount, alleging, and this is interesting, I think, that Netflix is conducting a sour grapes scorched earth campaign to undercut the Paramount deal, and getting those, the Teamsters who are so easy to persuade, and just, you can just tell them anything and they'll believe it, right? The Teamsters, for instance, weighed in to say, this is going to cost jobs. You won't say how many jobs, but it's going to cost jobs. It's like, duh, that's how you're going to get back down from a 7x debt to equity level to something that the ratings agencies won't call junk. But they're basically saying it's going to cost jobs. We oppose it. We need some concessions to preserve jobs. And they're saying, oh, no. That's just Netflix making stuff up. It's revisionist history. And it's all Netflix's fault. And they're trying to undercut us. Maybe that works with the Department of Justice. I don't know how it works elsewhere, actually. I don't know. Blaming Netflix for some sort of AstroTurf campaign seems...
There's so much bullshit in the ecosystem now. I was looking at that congressional hearing today.
Is that the technical term, Dan?
I think it should be if it's not. I mean...
Okay, there is actually a wonderful book. It's called Bullshit by an academic about the uses and misuses of bullshit. It's actually a terrific book. Came out 4 or 5 years ago.
I think this is exactly it, because I was watching... they had... Clay Travis, who's like the former lawyer who now edits Outkick, the conservative sports publication. He's an influencer for the most part. He's a strange congressional witness. And they had Curtis Leggett, the head of the National Association of Broadcasters. And the broadcasters are taking on the chin, and so are the consumers, because all these sports leagues led by the NFL are migrating to streaming, and it's too expensive. the consumer. The GOP is so concerned about the consumer. And I did like with Jamie Raskin. He got on there today and said, hey, listen, we can look at these old rules governing sports leagues that were formed 60 years ago. It's worth it to look at them. But it's strange what we're looking at them now when you have a government that just greenlit a station merger that created an ownership group that controls 80% of.
It's twice as big as the congressionally mandated limit on how big these things can be.
And they mentioned Raskin rattled off the holdings of Paramount, Warner Brothers, and it's staggering. A lot of the names are like kind of, you read those cable channels and they sound impressive to older folks like us because they once were impressive, and they're whittled out now. But
I just want to be clear: True TV was never impressive. Okay, True TV ever. You watched it 1 week a year because it had some of the leftover March Madness games. Otherwise, no. But you're right; it's a long list. A journal like the last fall did here's what it'd be like if you put these things together, and it was like half a page. It felt like of all the holdings. It's crazy.
You wonder, like, is this a distraction? Certainly, Ken Paxton suing Netflix seems like a distraction. Here's the guy. He's the attorney general for Texas. He's 3 points behind the Democratic insurgent in the polls early on. Election's a few months away, but he wants to be a state senator or a senator.
U.S. Senator. Replaced John Cornyn, who lost.
Right. Exited by Trump, primaried out.
Basically.
So he's grandstanding with this case, which in and of itself is kind of interesting. It's the same case that was brought against Meta and YouTube successfully 3 or 4 months back, generated a big verdict against the two in New Mexico, as you might recall. It's not saying their content is dangerous. It's saying the mechanisms engineered to make the content addictive are dangerous. And I think Paxton is kind of dangerous for arguing it. It might be effective. He's viewed as a long shot, but it feels disingenuous, and he doesn't feel like, what is the prospective senator of Texas who's got his hands full messing with Netflix right now?
Well, the real deal is you need to know, as somebody who used to cover Texas politics many, many years ago when they still had Democrats besides Tallarico, Paxton is a particularly slimy guy on so many, many levels, and somehow continues to win out. He makes Ted Cruz look like just a cool, regular guy you just want to hang out and have a beer with. And nobody in the Senate famously likes Ted Cruz. So Paxton comes along, so they'll have a daily double in terms of the U.S. Senate representation. I mean, obviously, the Texas has turned Republican over the last 35 years, but it's a little more purple than it used to be, possibly not a lot. I still haven't elected a Democrat in 25 years, I don't think, statewide office.
My larger point is all these, from Brendan Carr's declaration that broadcast needs a leg up because local news is taken on the chin, to Jim Jordan today, who led that hearing. The NFL is dispersing streaming and the consumer's getting screwed. Actually, analysts have crunched the numbers, and it's cheaper now than paying for a bunch of pay TV.
Yeah.
All these arguments are so disingenuous, and it just feels like, Raskin's point just so resonated to me. You're going to worry about all this bullshit when you've got like major lapses of regulatory oversight happening. So how about raw travel, Texas? How come that hasn't happened yet?
Talking about foreign lands.
No, I filmed a lot. I filmed a lot in Texas, and we had a really good time. And I just find there's good people everywhere. I mean, we were in Austin, Houston. I mean, when you're in the metropolitan area, it was before everything was so toxic. And but we had a good time in Texas, and people are nice. And
did you go to the Hill Country?
Did go to Hill Country, RV through it. Yeah, I had a really good time.
Nice.
Same thing with the verticals. We'll have some domestic as well as some international travel. It's not all international. I enjoy domestic travel. I like not having to worry about currency exchange and being able to speak the language. It's add some simplicity and jet lag. Those are all good things. But I mean the
no jet lag is like, what is this? I'm in a different time zone and I'm not like drunk for 3 days just trying to figure out what time
I'll be
zone
jet
I'm in.
lagged
Yeah.
in Denver though, I guarantee you. But yeah, no,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you guys wanted me to say anything on this, but I would just say that Texas is a lot like my home state of Tennessee. They keep shooting themselves in the foot by electing the
Where in
wrong
Tennessee? Because I used to also work in Memphis. So,
Middle Tennessee.
okay.
So yeah,
Chattanooga?
Nashville, close, not that far from Chattanooga. It's a great town. There's some good people
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But they just gerrymandered, Memphis into a red. So it's like, talk about disingenuous, but they're really waking up people. And the thing about Tennessee is they had the lowest participation rate of voters in the country. And they have the 51st rated spending on education in the country. And they're just getting manipulated left and right. Good people are getting manipulated by billionaire rhetoric and propaganda, which is why I think it's so important that we help people learn how to spot and fight disinformation from a young age. Because once you get older, I'm always having to talk to my mom, and thank God she's still got her brain and stuff that she can still decipher right from wrong. But there are some people who they go down rabbit holes and you just can't get them back. And it's sad.
Yeah.
I've been saying that about Dan for years now. They go down rabbit holes, you can't get them back.
Can't get them back, man. They just got to find their own way out. It's like
there he goes. There he goes. Starts talking about the Knickerbockers. And this is a Laker fan. This is weird.
Listen,
this is weird.
June since, well, you can't count the bubble year.
Of course you can count that. That's still an NBA. They still got a Larry O'Brien trophy, dude. It's still one of the 17 that they've won in the time that the Knickerbockers have won 0.
The Knicks. What about James Dolan inviting Trump, 2 Nepo babies?
My God, James Dolan is the most hateable owner of all time.
I know.
No. That was Donald Sterling. Let's be fair.
That's true.
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 True story. My first project was financed by Cablevision. Way back in Urban Latino days. Yeah, I got money from Cablevision and actually made them money, believe it or not. I brought them a check when the show went into syndication that they had helped finance. And I'll never forget the look on the guy's face. He's like,
what is this money thing that you're talking about coming in? We don't really have a system to take money in. We only send it out.
I was a new producer. I was like, yeah, that's what the contract says. Should I not give it to you? It was like, 30, 40 grand for a company like Cablevision. They were like, what are they going to do with that? But it was very important to get that done. And so
pay a secretary or something. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So
executive assistant.
I hate to talk bad about Cablevision, but yeah.
Right.
Jim Dolan had nothing to do with that. And he had nothing to do with that success. And I think like entrepreneurs like you guys are entrepreneurs. Once you're an entrepreneur and you build something from zero, you are different from people who never built anything. And that means something. And I swear to God,
special.
It is, man. It's like me as a traveler talking to someone who's never left the country. It's one thing if they're 15 years old. It's another if they're 55 years old. And it's one thing if they want to go, but they just haven't taken that lunge, or it's another if they have no desire to get outside of their zone. There's certain people I can't even converse with because we have nothing in common, And, we live in a blessed country. People have a passport that still gets you to places. And to not take advantage, I mean, they better travel while they can, because I'm not sure how long that magical passport's going to, Morocco made out. Well, I was in Morocco in January, and we just kept their fans from coming into the World Cup.
Yeah.
Like, will they be so welcoming next time I go?
Or will they? My spouse has a friend who we met in Paris last fall. She has a friend who spends most of her time in Morocco, but she's back and forth. And she's tight with the king of Morocco. And it's like, well, Andrea's like, we should go to Morocco. I was like, sure, sounds good. Let's go to a film festival in Morocco. Okay, let's do that. Oh, wait, now let's just see how this goes, because Morocco's got a pretty good team.
And the king loves
fans in.
I have to tell this story, though. One of my first jobs was the village gatekeeper for Westwood Village for the 1984 Olympics. I basically wore this pink and green uniform. Very tough to wear that on the bus when you're 17 years old. And had to check off, working next to a SWAT team, I had to check off buses as they came through the village. And
well, it helps to have the SWAT team next to your pink and green outfit. It provides a little more gravitas, shall we say.
Among Olympic transportation, that was my department, among the rank and file, the stories of the Moroccan soccer team were legend. They, were basically sexually assaulting menopausal housewives. Nothing that would, at the time, wasn't viewed too serious. Nobody's clothes were taken off or nobody was hurt, but it was not received very well, understandably. They would show up, the grass was, nobody would shower. They would show up, the grass was still here, and they'd be set loose upon the village to plunder and do other things.
Well, they were free. In Morocco, I took one tour with a guy in Fez because you get lost without it. And I was like, he came through my Riyadh guy. He's the cousin of the guy who owned the Riyadh. So I was like, okay, cool. Very nice guy, young guy, spoke good English, did a great tour. But he started off with this line of propaganda that I was like, I've been to too many countries. I'm like, this is what they're required to say. Thanks to the supreme intelligence of the King of Morocco, we now have education everywhere. And this used to be like this, but now it's like this. And I'm like, this is like the United States now. This is like a White House meeting. And I was just like, are you required to tell me that? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And so people don't have free speech. And I'm like, should I encourage visiting Morocco? And I'm like, yeah, you should, because when you go somewhere where they don't have free speech and you appreciate your free speech. So I think it's important to go to places like that. He was terrified that I would put him on camera, and because I filmed him a little bit and he thought it would be okay. And then an older tour guy said, no, you'll lose your tourism license for doing that. And I was like, even though he told me all the proper propaganda. So, it's just like, that's why I'm sorry, I don't mean to get off on a tangent, guys, at all, but I'm just like, Morocco, World Cup, current events, travel, it's all related, man. It's all related, and to media,
Right.
and my question is, when a Paramount, and this is for you guys, I'm going to turn the tables on you. You guys, the media experts, all of this consolidation, all of this corporate, I think corporate media is broken. What does that mean for independent producers like me? Does it mean less opportunity or more? Does my importance grow, or do my opportunities shrink to such a level that I'll just leave the business? What do you think?
I think that personally, I think that to use the language of the Communist Manifesto, the means of production are now in the hands of the proletariat, and the means of distribution and the means of marketing at a level that has never existed in any significant way for the ability to reach a lot of people, if you're lucky and good. And it's both things.
Yeah, how many people had a radio transmitter 100 years ago, or could broadcast television, or I think you're right.
So all of a sudden, you running around, or us, can reach thousands of people and get advertising that'll help pay for things, and sponsorships. We have an audience laboriously built and much beloved. We love all of you.
Standing by to engage and open their check. That's
right. Yeah, exactly. This is another reason why we love them. But the point being that us and lots of other people, some of them have gotten very, very big, like Mr. Beast, or guys like that, who are just doing remarkable work, have built audiences that are far bigger than anything any of the networks have ever been able to do. So, and Darman is another fine example. He's got a whole complex up there by the Burbank airport that's huge. And
it seems like the niche, the more you guys have a niche, but
very specific niche.
Yeah, you do. But you approach it in a very unique way, which is why I've always been a fan since you guys launched, is because you're very different from an aggregator of stuff. You have spin opinions. You're not trying to tamp down what you think about something, and you're not purposely inflating it for clickbait, which is a very hard line, because it's easy to get into that trap. You're like, oh, this works, I'm going to do more of this. But once you start doing that, you have to be really careful, because you lose your authentic spin, which is why people want you in the first place. And I think
you go from clickbait to shtickbait. You like that? I'm really proud of that one. I just came up with that just a minute ago. Stick bait. But
Maybe you heard that one again.
But you guys are doing
well,
great.
I don't know that it'll get into wide use, but
in a way, we're in similar boats. You're independent. You're doing the newsletter thing. You've got bigger companies who are now collapsing, who used to do what you do, because you can now do it faster, better, cheaper. And the same thing, I think, occurs with independence. So when I see the changes that are happening, as bad as I hate to see 60 Minutes just lose its soul, cool. I just won't watch anymore. There's a million other things I can watch now that are just as credible, that do just as good of work. Back in the day, 60 Minutes was it.
We're late, but I did want to address that. I've watched a lot of. It was a guy from Wall Street Journal today talking about how I was an editor. I've been fired, and I have fired people. And Scott Pelley is delusional and entitled if he thinks that he expected anything less to speak to his bosses the way he spoke to them. And then he told the New York Times he was surprised to get fired. And Brendan Carr basically said the same thing. If you work for a regular mill, then this is what you would expect. These people are so out of touch. I don't think
look, 60 Minutes has been its own thing for a very long time, and he's just proving it. So
yeah, 60 Minutes. This came through for Bari Weiss too. I guess she had the take that when she first arrived, their shit doesn't stink. They think they're better than everybody. My opinion is, well, yes, they are. They're like, this is the highest level that this shit is. It doesn't get higher than this.
And it doesn't stink. It comes distinct.
All right, I'll stop cussing.
Now it's extinct.
It's it's an elite group, and it was exceptional, and it was entitled to the fruits of exceptionalism. And I don't think certain people can accept that or appreciate it and understand it.
Well, and if it had been a conservative person that was fired by a liberal person, would Brendan Carr say what he said? Would the Wall Street Journal guy say what he said? Like, there's a respect issue that I have for people who I think are moral and have integrity and have done good work, and they get extra license to express themselves. And I don't care. I don't know what happened in that meeting. I could care less, because I knew the president of CBS News, McMahon. And, she, I think, she was respected by people. But when you bring in people that people don't respect, this is the natural occurrence from that. And so a fish stinks from the head down. And what you're seeing is a complete collapse of that. It'll never rebuild. There's no way. You can make it conservative, but you're basically Fox News Light at this point.
Well, here's a guy
it's not about politics. It's about fact and good journalism.
Who incubated his understanding of the world through the crucible, which was a 60 Minutes production, and all the proving that you had to do of your concept and scrutiny you received. And I'm sure words got crossed on a daily basis. And you could talk to your supervisor if you thought he was full of it, and vice versa.
Right.
And you can't, with this sort of top-down authoritarian grip that these guys, like Brendan Carr, Bari Weiss, the mindset they operate on. Well, if you talk to me, I'm your boss. You can't tell me the truth. It's just corrosive.
Well, let me just say that, as I have mentioned in the past with things, as Daniel has expressed vociferously his opinion on something, two things can be true at the same time. So one, no matter who you are, even if you are making millions of dollars a year as a prominent 37-year employee of a company, when you start ripping into the new guys who are taking over, you could get fired. Two, you would think he would have some leeway to do this, but that's not the setting he's in. He chose not to read that room, and that is absolutely his choice, to make a point about much more problematic behaviors that he thinks are undercutting a beloved and now ancient brand by TV standards. It's 57 years old. What it looks like going forward next fall, I think, will be fascinating. And whether it is still a top 10 show will also be fascinating.
Two ideas at the same time. I still like you, Dave, but you're wrong.
It's a dumpster fire. CBS is a dumpster fire, and it's a dumpster fire on purpose. They capture it to destroy.
That's the point.
Not to build.
That's the point.
Yeah, right. All these things, it's like John Oliver on HBO talked about what is it, New University or whatever in Florida. The conservatives took it over.
Yeah.
It's woke, and now it's just a $60 million or so fiasco where they bring in 30 baseball players. Like, it took a really good school. It had a unique perspective and point of view, but because it rubbed them the wrong way, they made it this political experiment. And in the process, all these kids that were going to school there who are like halfway through their college education and were getting really something out of it, 80% of them went on to be, to get their doctorate. Like, it's a joke now. And just the destruction of these things is, like, I think the point. It's not to actually build something better, because if they could, it's so much easier to destroy than to build. It's so much easier to tell a lie than to do the hard work to tell the truth. And it's just, what is happening is it's just a fire hose of lies, and you cannot possibly come at them one-on-one and explain, because it's much more complicated to defend the truth than it is to just simply make an allegation or a lie. And that's why, getting back to my trip to Finland, disinformation is important. And yeah, it may be easier for them, but that doesn't mean that a state like Delaware or Maine or New York or Tennessee could not take something from that and apply some of those policies and be a model for the rest of the nation and float it out there. There are really good things happening. And I think, like, that has always been like what I wanted Raw Travel to show people, like, how people across the world have all these good ideas. That in Morocco, getting back to that, they have bags that reusable bags. It's a very poor country. In New York City, they put plastic bag. In Tennessee, plastic bags at the Walmart inside of a plastic bag we're still doing plastic bags.
Well, not in California, which we got out of that whole business.
But that's something that, like, a poor country like Morocco is ahead of the United States. It's just insane, and those are things we can learn from travel. And I feel like if more people traveled with the right mindset, maybe, we could have some change. But, again, I just am excited to be going to the streaming conference, guys. Thank you for having me. I'm not trying to wind it up, but I don't know what is here anymore.
Well, we need to.
No, we're excited to be there too. Please, if you are coming, let us know. We'll try to have a conversation with you. I'm doing 2 panels, Dan. I think you're doing 1. Is that correct?
Yes, Dave. You're twice as good as me.
No, I'm twice as easy to get to do something on stage.
I'm doing more panels, so you're all ahead of me.
Daily at Stream TV. We'll be publishing every day and posting panels and otherwise meeting with people and hanging out and, what else are we doing?
I'm going to drink a beer. I will drink a beer or a glass of wine. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
They've
got some pretty decent craft breweries in the Denver area, for what it's worth, if you drink that stuff.
High. And you get really, like, half a beer, I'll be like, woo. I'm going to work
on Hannity on here, and we'll get some balance. At least be 3-1. It'll be like the FCC commission or something. a right-wing voice to check us. Our unfettered lefty.
I thought David was the right winger. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm not. I'm just somebody who covered politics for a long time and am always about, let's look at all of this, not just this side or that side, but let's look at all of this.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I
only make Dan's head explode sometimes.
After they told me I was one. I'm like, I thought I was a capitalist.
Well, in Vietnam, you can be both. So there you go. Right?
All right, let's wind this up. David, you want to sing us out?
I'll sing us out. So thank you, guys. We're going to be at next week's Stream TV Denver show, all 3 of us. Join us if you happen to be in the neighborhood. It should be a banging show. We'll have lots of coverage, so you can at least enjoy it vicariously. Thanks again to Media Play News, our midweek partner on this podcast, and our, all the things that we do. You can get nexttmt.com. You can get our newsletter there and link to our video and audio podcasts on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and you can drink in all the goodness and awesomeness and uniqueness that we are. We really appreciate all your time and attention. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Love those comments. Love the support. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, guys. Thank you guys for having me.